Pakistan is doomed. The long-standing and volatile India-Pakistan blood feud has recently returned to headlines this past month, reignited by terrorist attacks in Kashmir and culminating on May 6th with Indian airstrikes on alleged militant camps inside Pakistan. The whole situation is a mess. Constant claims and denials are thrown around by both sides, and some people have entered panic mode, saying that an all-out India-Pakistan war is looming, leading to another global conflict. Those voices of concerns were quickly silenced when India and Pakistan agreed to a ceasefire, which lasted barely 3 hours and was broken by Pakistan. This is a gigantic mistake on their part, because should these threats and escalations ever evolve into a hypothetical armed conflict, the odds would be heavily stacked against Pakistan due to its inferior military strength as well as internal factors and critical weaknesses that would be easily exploitable and turned against the country. If you paid attention to your geography classes at school, you should know that India is the most populous country on the planet, with over 1.4 billion people living in it. By contrast, Pakistan has a population of over 250 million people, completely outnumbered by India. This manpower discrepancy is also reflected in both countries' military personnel. India outnumbers Pakistan in active and reserve personnel over 2-1. The paramilitary ratio is about 5-1, and the fit-for-service population has a staggering 6.5-1 ratio. Therefore, in a battle dictated by outmanning the other army and horde tactics, Pakistan would be metaphorically trampled by the far larger Indian force. But sure, being outnumbered doesn't necessarily mean being outgunned. Maybe Pakistan has better military technology than India, and a hypothetical war between the two would be more akin to the 100 men versus 1 gorilla debate. Let's make some side-by-side comparisons between India and Pakistan's armies. On land, both countries have similar inventories of tanks, artillery, and armored vehicles, leading to a somewhat even playing field, and dare I say, Pakistani advantages in some aspects, like self-propelled artillery and mobile rocket launchers. However, this advantage is microscopic compared to India's total air and naval supremacy over Pakistan. Alongside this, India benefits from better infrastructure, supply chains, and a domestic defense industry that allows for quicker refills and mobility. Furthermore, economically, India no-diffs Pakistan with an economy 10 times larger and an abundance in natural resources, enabling greater military spending and long-term sustainability in a hypothetical war scenario. But Janos, what about nukes? Both countries are nuclear powers. Surely we don't have to talk about that doomsday scenario, right? It would go against my nothing ever happens mantra, and even if we were to consider this last-ditch nuclear option, Pakistan is still doomed. Over the past decades, both countries have been engaged in a perpetual dick measuring contest over who possesses more nuclear warheads, with each country claiming to have somewhere between 170 and 180 nukes each. However, as you can see from this population density map, Pakistan's population is tightly packed around the Indus River banks, whereas India's is considerably more spread out across its larger land size. Basically, it's like a game of battleships, but Pakistan's board is 20 times smaller than India's. Although utilizing nuclear weapons would wreak absolute chaos on both countries, Pakistan would ultimately be the one who draw the shorter straw. But that's considering if the two countries would be even willing to use such weapons against one another, which is unlikely. In the most recent conflict between Ukraine and Russia, the doctrine for using nukes has been tested by Ukraine with the incursion of the Ukrainian army into Russian territory. Even though Russia could have used this as an excuse to activate these weapons, it didn't, as Ukraine successfully called their bluff due to the consequences of using such weapons being far too great. The same theory can be applied in the case of a war between India and Pakistan, where mutual self-assured destruction would deter either nation from using nukes against one another. So, as you can see, a Pakistani military campaign against India is mathematically doomed from the start. Sure, we could all sit and dream of a smaller Pakistani army outmaneuvering and overpowering a larger Indian army all we want. However, any dreams of a Pakistani tactical masterclass are instantly shattered when we factor in the country's abysmal geography, inherited from, or rather cursed by, their former colonial rulers, the British. As I've previously mentioned, Pakistan's population is heavily centered around the Indus River Valley, quite perfectly matching the river's course and its tributaries. The Indus River Plain is considered the breadbasket of Pakistan, but it can easily be turned into the country's biggest weakness, because it provides little to no natural defenses for the eastern border. India can just charge in and roll over Pakistani forces, whilst also capturing key cities like Karachi and Lahore. Karachi in particular is of immense strategic importance. Not only is it Pakistan's largest city, but it also hosts the country's busiest port, handling around 60% of all cargo and serving as a critical hub for trade, fuel, and military resupply. In other words, whoever controls the port controls the whole of Pakistan. And even if the city is not captured by Indian forces, attacking and damaging its infrastructure would severely cripple Pakistan's war effort and fighting ability, giving India an immense upper hand. Another crucial weakness posed by the Indus River is that it and its tributaries' origins are in India. Prior to the recent airstrikes, India responded swiftly to the terrorist attack and alleged Pakistani aggression by tightening border controls, halting visa issuances to Pakistani nationals, and most crucially, announcing the suspension of the landmark Indus Waters Treaty of 1960, a pact that has long withstood the test of hostilities. The consequences of this action are profound. India's suspension of the treaty has led to significant reductions in water flow throughout the Chenab River, with Pakistani authorities reporting a 90% drop in water supply. Furthermore, India has accelerated the construction of hydroelectric projects in Kashmir, which would further impact water availability downstream. This move threatens Pakistan's agriculture and energy sectors and puts millions of lives at risk, as the country relies heavily on the Indus River system for irrigation and hydropower. Overall, Pakistan is a victim of its own flawed geography, which was caused, of course, by the British. The India-Pakistan border was drawn to follow not any ethnic regions or geographical boundaries, but rather the religious border between the majority Muslim and majority Hindu regions of the former British colony of India, aka the British Raj. This is the main cause between the endless state of conflict in Kashmir. For an oversimplified rundown, following its independence, the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir was given the theoretical option to join India, join Pakistan, or remain independent. However, after Pakistan's military incursion and the Maharaja's appeal to India for protection, the region was hastily integrated into India, without a plebiscite or any form of public consultation. Ever since, both nations have claimed Kashmir as their own, but the Kashmiri population, majority Muslim and diverse in identity, has remained caught in the middle, denied the right to self-determination and forced to live through decades of militarization, insurgency, and political turmoil. Not only that, but just like how the eastern border with India splits the Punjabs in half, the western border of Pakistan, which are also a product of British imperialism, bisect many ethnic groups, with notable ones like the Baloch and Pashtuns being split between Pakistan and Iran and Afghanistan respectively. The Balochistan region in particular has long been a home to separatist movements seeking greater autonomy or outright independence from Pakistan, driven by grievances over political marginalization and exploitation of natural resources. The Balochistan separatist movements have been brutally suppressed through a combination of military operations, censorship, and political crackdowns by the Pakistani state. However, in the event of a full-scale war between Pakistan and India, these separatist sentiments could intensify, with insurgent groups potentially using the chaos to escalate their campaigns and stretching the Pakistani army thin, which would be a very probable scenario considering separatism tends tends to rise when a country's living standard plummets and resources become scarce, as would be the case in a war between the two countries. Thus, internal issues would be a large risk for Pakistan alongside external ones in the case of war between these two nuclear powers, that again would only benefit India and spell certain doom for Pakistan. Thankfully, as it stands, in spite of escalations and threats, no declaration of war has been made between the two countries. It will be interesting to see how the rest of the world reacts to these growing tensions beyond just a neutral fence-sitting war bad stance. China's response in this situation would also be something to look out for should India and Pakistan go to war. You would think that China would rush to India, its BRICS colleagues' aid. However, as it turns out, China is one of, if not Pakistan's closest ally. Economically, China has heavily invested in Pakistan through the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, a key part of its Belt and Road Initiative, and would be concerned about the security of these investments in spite of their effectiveness. Furthermore, despite both cooperating under BRICS, China still sees India as a regional rival and could potentially see this potential conflict as an opportunity to secure its stronghold over South Asia and distract India from their ongoing border disputes, particularly in Ladakh and Arunachal Pradesh, as well as, Jammu and Kashmir. Hell, although India would be likely to win this conflict, it wouldn't be at no small cost, and China could seek to exploit this war by funding Pakistan's war effort in an attempt to weaken India and grow its influence in the region and world as a whole. But those were my 2 cents on the matter of a potential war between India and Pakistan, how disastrous it would be for Pakistan, and why they should think twice before violating ceasefire agreements and pushing India's buttons like that. Beyond just being completely unmatched militarily by its enemy, the country's unforgiving geography, lacking neutral defenses in the east, combined with deep-rooted internal issues like separatist unrest, ethnic fragmentation, and economic instability all make Pakistan dangerously vulnerable in the event of a full-scale conflict. So let me know what you think. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like and smash the subscribe button, and if you really did, become a member like these wonderful people. My name is Janos and you've watched Living Ironically in Europe.
Hey, why are you